There is a story. A young man travels across mountains to reach a famous Zen master. He has been walking for weeks. He is desperate for knowledge, desperate for the secret that will finally make him capable, finally make him strong, finally make him the person he has been trying to become for years. He reaches the master's simple house, sits down, and immediately begins to talk. He talks about all the books he has read, all the teachers he has studied under, all the techniques he has already tried. He talks and talks, explaining everything he knows, asking 100 questions at once. The Zen master says nothing. He picks up a teapot and begins pouring tea into the young man's cup. He pours slowly, steadily. The cup fills. It reaches the brim. And then the tea begins to overflow, spilling across the table, onto the floor, running off the edge. The young man jumps up. He says, "Master, the cup is full. No more will go in." And the master looks at him calmly and says, "You are like this cup. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" That story is over 1,000 years old. And it is more relevant to the life you are living right now than almost anything else you will hear today. Because the problem with the modern approach to discipline is not that people are lazy. It is that people are full. Full of noise. Full of information. Full of plans and systems and strategies and goals and metrics. Full of doing. And because they are so completely full, there is no room left for the quality of mind that actually produces mastery. The quality that the greatest warriors, the greatest thinkers, the greatest performers across the entire tradition of the East called by different names but always pointed at the same thing. Stillness. This is episode 10 of Sera Self Discipline. And today we are going somewhere most discipline content will never take you. We are going into the silence. And we are going to discover why that silence is the most powerful thing you have never trained. Before we enter the philosophy, I want to challenge a belief you probably hold without even knowing it. The belief is this, that effort and discipline are the same thing. They are not. Effort is the expenditure of energy. Discipline is the mastery of how that energy moves. And these are not just different in degree. They are different in kind. A person running desperately in the wrong direction is expending enormous effort. A person sitting still who has just identified the right direction with clarity is exercising discipline of the highest order. The modern world has confused these two things almost completely. We celebrate busyness as virtue. We treat exhaustion as evidence of commitment. We measure our discipline by how much we are doing and how hard we are pushing and how little we are sleeping. And the result is a generation of people who are working harder than any previous generation in history and producing less of what actually matters. The Zen tradition, the Taoist tradition, the Japanese warrior tradition, these cultures looked at this kind of frantic effort and they had a word for it. Not admiration. They called it the disease of doing. The compulsive need to act, to push, to produce, born not from wisdom but from fear. Fear that if you stop moving, if you sit in silence, if you allow space into your life, something terrible will be revealed. That you are not enough. That the effort is all there is. What Zen offers is not the opposite of discipline. It is discipline at a deeper level. The discipline of the mind that has learned to be still without being idle. Active without being frantic. Fully present without being consumed. And it is built on three concepts that I want to walk you through today with complete care and complete honesty about how they apply to your real life. The first concept is Wu Wei. Wu Wei is a Taoist principle, and its literal translation is non-action or effortless action. And before you dismiss that as soft philosophy with no practical application, I want you to understand what it actually means. Because it has been misunderstood almost everywhere it has been discussed in the Western world, Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. Wu Wei does not mean passivity or laziness or detachment from your goals. Wu Wei means acting in complete alignment with the nature of what you are doing, without forcing, without fighting against the grain of reality. Think about water. Water does not force its way around a rock. Water finds the natural path. Water does not strain. Water does not get frustrated. Water simply moves in the direction that the available space and gravity and momentum suggest. And in doing so, water carves canyons. Given enough time, water does more work than any amount of brute force could achieve. Wu Wei is the human equivalent of that. When you are working on a skill and you are forcing every single movement, watching yourself, judging every output, gripping too tightly, the quality of the work suffers. Any musician knows this. Any athlete knows this. The performance that happens under excessive self-monitoring is always worse than the performance that happens when you release the grip slightly and allow the trained body and mind to move naturally. This is Wu Wei in practice. Not abandoning effort. Not abandoning standards. But releasing the desperate, white-knuckled grip on outcomes that actually interferes with the quality of the work itself. The Taoist sages called the state a forced, effortful, anxious doing Wei. And they said that most people live their entire lives in Wei, forcing everything, fighting the natural rhythm of what they are doing, exhausting themselves not because the work is genuinely hard but because they are working against themselves at the same time they are working on the task. Wu Wei is the choice to work with yourself instead of against yourself. How do you develop this in practical terms? The first step is identifying where you are gripping too hard. Where in your daily discipline are you so attached to a specific outcome, so anxious about a specific standard, so fearful of a specific failure, that the anxiety itself is degrading the quality of your effort? Writing, training, creating, learning, leading, in which of these areas are you fighting yourself while you work? The second step is learning to distinguish between genuine resistance, the real difficulty of a skill that you must push through, and self-generated resistance, the friction you create by forcing, by judging, by being at war with your own process. The first kind requires more effort. The second kind requires less. Wu Wei says, become so well aligned with what you are doing that the effort becomes invisible. Not because you are working less hard, but because you are no longer wasting energy fighting yourself while you work. The second concept is Mushin. Mushin is a Japanese term used most famously in the martial arts, particularly in swordsmanship and Zen-influenced fighting traditions. Its literal meaning is no mind, or mind without mind. And it describes a state of consciousness that the greatest performers in any field either discover by accident or spend years deliberately cultivating. In Mushin, the mind is empty of fear, empty of doubt, empty of desire for a specific outcome, empty of the constant self-referential commentary that most of us experience as the normal background noise of consciousness. The thoughts are not suppressed. They simply do not arise. The mind is like a still pool of water, and every action arises from that stillness with perfect clarity and perfect speed. The great Japanese swordsman Miyamoto Musashi wrote in the Book of Five Rings about the importance of a mind that is like still water. He said that when you meet an opponent, you should not be thinking about how to attack, or how to defend, or what the opponent might do next. If you are thinking about any of these things, you are already slower than you need to be. You are already in your own way. The master swordsman enters Mushin and allows the body, trained through thousands of hours of practice, to respond before the conscious mind has time to interfere. Now you might think this only applies to physical training. But Mushin is one of the most broadly applicable concepts in this entire tradition. Every time you face a decision and your mind floods with anxiety, with competing voices, with the weight of what others might think, with memories of past failures, you are in the opposite of Mushin. You are in maximum mental noise. And that noise is not helping you. It is slowing you down. It is distorting your perception. It is making the decision harder and the quality of the decision worse. Mushin in the boardroom looks like this. You have done the preparation, you know the material, and when the moment comes, you let the preparation speak through you rather than desperately trying to control every word in real time. Mushin in your training looks like this. Instead of evaluating every repetition, every set, every session against a mental scorecard, you enter the work and you let the work happen. You become the training rather than the person watching himself train. Mushin in your creative work looks like this. Instead of writing and immediately judging each sentence, instead of creating and immediately measuring each creation against an imagined ideal, you enter a state of flow, which is exactly what Mushin produces, and you let the trained mind express itself without constant interruption. How do you cultivate Mushin? The Zen masters were extremely clear about this. Mushin is not a technique you apply in the moment. Mushin is the natural result of two things: deep practice and deliberate stillness training. Deep practice means doing the thing so many times, so carefully, so consistently, that the conscious mind no longer needs to manage the basic execution. The skill drops below the level of conscious control and becomes available to you without thinking. This is why discipline of practice, the daily repetition, the commitment to the fundamentals, the long patient hours of training that no one applauds, is not separate from Mushin. It is the prerequisite for it. And stillness training means deliberately creating space in your day where you are not doing, not consuming, not producing, not planning. where you are simply sitting with the contents of your own mind, allowing the noise to settle, practicing the capacity to be present without agenda. The Zen monks did this through formal sitting meditation. But you do not need to call it meditation if that word has the wrong associations for you. Call it stillness practice. Call it the empty hour. Call it whatever you like. The practice is simple. Sit down, set a timer for 15 or 20 minutes, do nothing, think nothing on purpose, and when thoughts arise, which they will, relentlessly at first, simply notice them and return to the stillness. Not fighting them. Not following them. Just returning. Over weeks and months of this practice, the background noise of your mind begins to settle. The capacity to enter Mushin, in your work, in your decisions, in your conversations, in your physical performance, becomes available to you in a way it never was before. This is not mysticism. This is training the most important instrument you have. The third concept is Zanshin. If Mushin is the stillness before and during the action, Zanshin is the awareness that continues after the action is complete. The word means remaining mind, or lingering awareness. In the martial arts, it describes the state of a warrior who has just completed a technique, a throw, a cut, a strike, and rather than relaxing, rather than mentally moving on, remains in complete presence, completely aware, completely ready. The action is finished, but the mind has not departed. You have seen Zanshin without knowing its name. You have seen it in the archer who holds the bow perfectly still long after the arrow has left, eyes still fixed on the target. You have seen it in the musician who holds the last note in complete stillness after the music has ended, not moving, not releasing, until the final vibration has passed. You have seen it in the athlete who completes the final movement of a routine and stays in perfect composure, present to the last fraction of the last moment, not collapsing into relief or celebration until the thing is truly, completely done. Zanshin is the discipline of not departing prematurely. And the modern world has almost completely lost this quality. We finish a task and immediately reach for the phone. We complete a workout and immediately check the metrics. We end a conversation and immediately replay it in our heads while starting the next one. We are always moving away from the present moment, always leaning into the next thing, always half departed from wherever we actually are. What Zanshin teaches is that the quality of your presence during and immediately after an action is as important as the action itself. Because the mind that is always departing, always already in the next moment, is a mind that never fully experiences anything. Never fully integrates what just happened. Never extracts the full value from the work it just did. There is also a practical dimension to Zanshin that is often missed. The warrior who releases Zanshin too soon, who mentally leaves the fight before it is completely over, is the warrior who gets struck by the attack he did not see coming because he was already celebrating the previous exchange. In your life, this looks like the project you consider finished before it is truly finished. The relationship you stop tending because things are going well. The habit you stop reinforcing because you have achieved the initial goal. The discipline you relax because the crisis has passed. Zanshin says, stay present. Stay aware. Do not confuse the pause in the difficulty for the end of the difficulty. Keep your attention on what matters after the obvious moment of intensity has passed. Now I want to bring these three concepts together into something you can actually structure your days around. Because the Zen tradition was never abstract. The monks had daily structures. The warriors had daily rituals. The philosophers had daily practices. The philosophy was always meant to be lived, not just understood. Here is what a Zen-informed daily structure looks like in a modern life. You begin the day in stillness before you begin it in action. Not because stillness is more important than action, but because the quality of the action you take all day is determined by the quality of mind you bring to it. Before the phone, before the news, before the planning, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of complete quiet. Sitting. Breathing. Allowing the mind to settle before you ask it to move. This is not optional. This is the forge. You are heating the metal before you shape it. A cold forge produces brittle work. A warmed mind, settled and present, produces decisions, effort, and creativity of a completely different quality. The middle of the day is governed by Wu Wei. You work on the things that matter most, and you work with the grain of what you are doing rather than against it. You notice when you are forcing, when anxiety and ego and fear have taken over the process, and you release the grip slightly. Not the standard. Not the effort. The grip. The anxious white-knuckled insistence that this specific outcome happen in this specific way right now. When you move between tasks, you do not immediately begin the next one. You take 60 seconds. You sit for 60 seconds in complete stillness, a micro-Zanshin, before moving forward. This is the practice of not departing prematurely from what you just did, and not arriving prematurely in what you are about to do. You are fully present in the transition. This 60 seconds is one of the most powerful productivity practices I have encountered, and it comes directly from the Zen understanding of Zanshin. At the end of the day, before sleep, you return to stillness once more. Not to analyze everything that happened. Not to plan tomorrow in exhaustive detail. But to sit quietly and ask one question: was I present today? Not successful. Not productive. Not disciplined in the conventional sense. Present. Because a day in which you were fully present, in which you brought complete attention to what you were doing while you were doing it, is almost always also a day of genuine discipline and genuine output. And a day in which you were scattered, half-present, always slightly elsewhere, that day was lost regardless of how long you worked or how many tasks you completed. I want to say something directly to you now. There is a version of yourself that you can see somewhere ahead of you. The version that is calm under pressure. The version that makes decisions with clarity rather than anxiety. The version that works with focus and depth rather than fragmented attention and constant distraction. The version that is genuinely still in a world that is aggressively trying to make everyone frantic all the time. That version of you is not a fantasy. That version of you is what becomes available when the mind has been trained the way the Zen masters trained theirs. When you have developed the capacity to enter stillness on purpose. When Wu Wei has replaced the white-knuckled grip on every outcome. When Mushin has become an accessible state rather than an accidental one. When Zanshin has taught you to stay present past the moment of obvious intensity. This is not the work of a single episode. It is not the work of a single week. The Zen monks trained for decades. The samurai spent their entire lives in pursuit of this quality of mind. I am not telling you that you need a decade. But I am telling you that this is real work. The most important work. And it begins not with a dramatic effort, but with a simple and humble act. Empty the cup. Whatever you think you know about discipline, about productivity, about how to build a strong mind, set it aside for just long enough to feel the silence beneath it. Because in that silence, if you stay long enough, something begins to clarify. The noise settles, and what remains is not emptiness. What remains is you. The real you. Not the you that is frantically managing impressions and fighting anxiety and forcing outcomes. The deeper you. The still center. And from that still center, every action becomes more powerful. Every decision becomes clearer. Every effort becomes more effective. Not because you are trying harder. Because you have finally stopped trying to fight yourself at the same time you are trying to move forward. This is what the Zen tradition calls the natural state of a human being. Not busy. Not frantic. Not overwhelmed. Still, aware and capable. It is available to you. Right now. It has always been available. You just need to get quiet enough to find it. This is Sera Self Discipline. Episode 10. The Zen Warrior's Silence. Now be still.